Ladies and gentlemen, you are not designed to be a victim of your thoughts. You were created to govern them. There is a war taking place every day, not on the outside, but between your ears. This war is subtle, it's dangerous, it disguises itself as reality. It whispers lies like, you're not good enough, you'll never change, you've failed too much. And if you're not careful, those lies become laws in your life. But I came to tell you today, it's time to kill your negative thinking. Every great destiny has an enemy, and one of the most persistent enemies is a mindset infected with negativity. This enemy doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be consistent. One negative thought, believed long enough, will build a prison around your potential. Mm. You cannot conquer your future while being loyal to your past pain. You can't access new seasons while recycling old mindsets. The thoughts you permit determine the life you produce. You cannot think defeat and walk in victory. You cannot think small and expect to expand. Your mind is not a dumping ground for fear, insecurity, and doubt. It is the birthplace of vision. It's the factory of purpose. So if you want to walk in power, you must take authority over the invisible territory of your thinking. You kill negative thinking, not with willpower, but with truth, not with denial, but with renewal. You have to reprogram your mind to match your destiny, not your history. Let me remind you, you were born with divine potential. You were created with the capacity to influence, to innovate, to lead. But none of that will manifest if you remain hostage to toxic thoughts. So today I challenge you, arrest every lie, confront every fear, and execute every negative thought that dares to oppose your purpose. Kill it. Kill it before it kills your joy, your creativity, your relationships, and your calling. Because until you think differently, you cannot live differently. Many people go through life as if their thoughts are in control of them, as if they are helpless bystanders to a mental storm that never stops raging. They assume that what enters their mind must be accepted as truth or treated as fact. But your mind is not a public sidewalk. It is private property. You are not a tenant in your thinking. You are the landlord. You have been given authority over your thought life. And until you recognize that authority, you will continue to live beneath your potential. Thoughts are seeds, and if you allow any and every kind of seed to take root in your mind, don't be surprised when you harvest chaos, confusion, and stagnation. You were created with the power of choice, and nowhere is that power more critical than in the realm of thought. Can't always control what shows up in your mind, but you absolutely control what stays there. Just because a thought knocks on the door doesn't mean you have to invite it in, feed it, and let it sleep on your couch. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. And the moment you realize that, you take back dominion over your mental space. You stop reacting to every fear, every doubt, and every insecurity, and you begin responding with discipline, truth, and intentionality. That's what it means to govern your mind. Governance implies structure, order, and law. In every government, there are policies that determine what is allowed and what is forbidden. Your mind needs a constitution, core beliefs, and values that dictate what is permitted to reside in your thinking. If you do not set mental boundaries, anything can enter. Bitterness, anxiety, jealousy, discouragement. But when you establish mental laws based on truth, purpose, and identity, you create a government that promotes growth. You are not weak. You've just been untrained. And it's time to retrain your mind to think according to the leadership you've been given. When you begin to govern your thoughts, you stop being reactive and start becoming proactive. Instead of waiting for negative patterns to dominate your day, you intentionally choose thoughts that align with your vision. You declare what kind of atmosphere will exist in your mind each morning. This is not denial of reality, this is strategic dominion. Kings don't apologize for ruling, they understand that peace in the land begins with order in the palace. Oh, likewise, peace in your life begins with order in your mind. And you, my friend, have been placed in the seat of authority. You are not the victim. You are the governor. Negative thinking may seem harmless at first. It creeps in quietly, disguised as caution, masked as realism, or cloaked in self protection. But over time, what appears to be a harmless whisper becomes a tyrant that governs your decisions, limits your actions, and strangles your vision. It tells you to play it safe when it's time to step forward. It convinces you to hide when it's time to shine. It reminds you of your flaws, your past failures, and the risks of trying. What you don't realize is that these thoughts are not just random, they are strategic. They are custom designed to keep you from fulfilling your purpose. Every assignment has an adversary, and negative thinking is often the first one you'll face. Destiny is not stumbled upon, it is pursued with intentionality and courage. But how can you pursue anything boldly when your mind is filled with hesitation, self doubt, and fear? Negative thinking builds invisible walls around divine opportunities. It causes you to settle for comfort zones when you were called to take territories. It blinds you to what is possible because it's obsessed with what went wrong. It doesn't just distort your perspective, it rewrites your internal narrative. It tells you that you're unworthy, that you'll always struggle, that no matter what you do, it won't be enough. And if you don't confront these thoughts early, they will become the blueprint of your life. You see, your destiny isn't just about where you're going, it's about who you must become to get there. And becoming that person requires a mental transformation. Negative thinking is incompatible with growth. You cannot evolve while constantly entertaining internal dialogue that keeps you bound to the version of yourself you were trying to escape. Your future cannot flourish in a mindset that's still rehearsing past trauma. Every great move of destiny demands that you divorce the beliefs that no longer serve the person you're becoming. You cannot embrace purpose and carry the weight of poisonous thoughts at the same time. The danger of negative thinking is not just that it affects your mood, it reprograms your belief system. It will cause you to sabotage opportunities, mistrust genuine connections, and retreat when it's time to rise. What could have been a divine appointment becomes a missed moment because your mind told you it wasn't possible. Negative thoughts don't just slow you down, they paralyze you. And the most dangerous part, you start to believe it's just who you are, but it's not. It's an infection, not an identity. And unless you identify it as the enemy, you will continue to give it the power to rule your path, shape your choices, and ultimately rob you of your destiny. Every season of your life demands a new version of you, new strength, new wisdom, new habits, and most importantly, a new mindset. You cannot step into something new while thinking the same old way. Far too many people pray for change, hope for promotion, and dream of breakthrough, but they carry yesterday's thinking into today's opportunity. Mm. And just like new wine cannot be poured into old wineskins, new seasons cannot be sustained by outdated mental patterns. Your next level is not just about what you're doing, it's about how you're thinking. Until your mind shifts, your life stays the same. You can change your environment, but if you don't change your mind, the old limitations will simply follow you into the new space. Old mindsets are mental programs that were usually formed in survival, disappointment, or fear. They helped you get through something, but they cannot help you build something. They were born in trauma, but now you're trying to use them in transition. That's like using a life jacket to climb a mountain. It's not just useless, it becomes a burden. The thoughts that protected you in the wilderness will hinder you in the promised land. Old mindsets say, play it safe, but new seasons require you to take strategic risks. Old mindsets say, stay invisible to avoid rejection, but new seasons demand that you stand up and be seen. If you're not willing to confront the outdated thoughts you've accepted as truth, you'll unknowingly forfeit the future you were designed to walk in. You must understand that elevation always comes with revelation. You cannot occupy a higher place with a lower perspective. When your season changes, your thinking must expand to match it. That means letting go of scarcity mindsets, victim mentalities, and belief systems rooted in pain, shame, or mediocrity. New seasons are not just upgrades, they are invitations to think bigger, lead stronger, and believe deeper. And when your thinking stays small, even blessings can feel like burdens. What was meant to elevate you can overwhelm you if your mindset hasn't matured. That's why some doors remain closed, not because you're unworthy, but because you are unprepared mentally to walk through them. Far too often, people try to force open the doors of new opportunity without first surrendering the mindsets that kept them stuck. They want the fruit of growth without digging up the roots of limitation. But elevation is always preceded by excavation. You've got to dig up those thoughts that no longer align with who you are becoming. A new season requires you to re examine your mental habits, your internal language, and your perspective on who you are and what's possible. Because if you keep recycling the same old thinking, don't be surprised when life starts to feel like deja vu. New outcomes will always require new outlooks, certainly. Here's the expanded version of key point no 4. The thoughts you permit determine the life you produce, written with the same principle-based and transformational tone. Your life does not move in the direction of your intentions, it moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. What you permit in your mind becomes the material your life is built with. Every action you take, every habit you form, every decision you make starts as a thought. That means your external world is just the reflection of your internal one. You can't produce peace while entertaining chaos. You can't live a life of purpose while consistently thinking in patterns of fear, regret, or defeat. The mind is not just a battleground, it is also a blueprint. If you don't control what goes in, you will have no control over what comes out. Permitted thoughts grow roots. When you allow a thought to stay, you give it permission to build influence. If you entertain discouragement, it will soon color your perspective. If you meditate on comparison, it will eventually rob you of contentment. If you rehearse betrayal, you will begin to sabotage relationships before they even begin. What you meditate on becomes what you manifest. The more space a thought is given in your mind, the more authority it gains over your emotions, your energy, and ultimately your behavior. And the dangerous part, most of this happens quietly, subtly, and daily until it becomes a way of life. This is why discipline of the mind is not optional. It is essential. You must become intentional about what you allow to take residence in your thought life. You cannot be casual with your thinking and expect to live a focused, powerful, purpose-driven life. Every thought that enters must be filtered. Is it building me or breaking me? Is it empowering me or exhausting me? Is it in alignment with my purpose or in opposition to it? The thoughts you permit today are shaping the life you will live tomorrow. A thought may seem small, but it's the seed of a future reality. Whatever you permit repeatedly, you will eventually produce consistently. Think of your mind like a garden. If you don't plant truth, weeds will grow automatically. You don't have to try to grow fear, anxiety, or negativity. They are like weeds that thrive in the absence of intentional planting. But a garden filled with purpose, vision, hope, and discipline must be cultivated. You must uproot the weeds daily and plant seeds of truth deliberately, because you are always producing something with your thoughts. The question is not if your thoughts are building your life, but what kind of life they are building. When you take responsibility for what you permit in your mind, you take back the power to shape the future you desire. Let me know when you're ready for Key Point 5, or if you'd like help turning these into a full speech outline or teaching session. Willpower alone is not strong enough to defeat a deeply rooted lie. You can try to push a negative thought away, suppress it, or ignore it, but if that thought has not been replaced with truth, it will return stronger, louder, and more persuasive. The mind doesn't stay empty. It will always be filled with something. That's why you don't just resist negativity, you replace it. And what do you replace it with? Truth. Truth is the only force powerful enough to confront and conquer the lies that negative thinking introduces. You cannot outfight deception with energy. You overcome it with clarity. Willpower drains, but truth sustains. Truth doesn't just remove the lie, it dismantles the foundation it stood on. Negative thoughts thrive in environments where truth is absent or unclear. They grow in silence, in isolation, in mental darkness. But when light enters, darkness loses its grip. That light is truth. And not just general truth, but personal, intentional truth. Truth about who you are, what you're capable of, and what your future holds. When you rehearse truth, you rewire your mind. You give your brain a new blueprint to follow. Instead of telling yourself, I'll never be enough, you declare, I am fully equipped for my purpose. Instead of thinking, I always fail, you confess. Every setback is preparing me for a greater comeback. These are not shallow affirmations. They are strategic weapons of war. You see, truth is not passive, it's active. It's not just something you know, it's something you use. It must be spoken, meditated on, and believed until it replaces the lie completely. It's not enough to know truth intellectually. You must internalize it emotionally and spiritually. Many people have truth available but never access it because they don't engage with it daily. If you don't speak truth to yourself, your fears will do the talking for you. If you don't remind yourself who you are, your past will try to redefine you. And if you don't feed your mind with truth, negativity will become your default programming. Killing negative thinking isn't about being strong one day, it's about being consistent every day. It's also important to understand that truth is not always what you feel, it's what aligns with your purpose and potential. Feelings are real, but they are not always accurate. That's why you need truth to stabilize your mind when emotions start to spiral. When the storms of life come, and they will, it's not your willpower that will anchor you. It's truth. Truth that reminds you that you are not what happened to you. Truth that declares your future is not limited by your failures. Truth that breaks the cycle of shame, doubt, and limitation. When truth becomes your mental diet, negative thoughts no longer have space to live. They may knock, but they won't find a home. Your future is not something that begins when circumstances change. It begins in your mind. Before anything is built in your life, it is first designed in your thoughts. Your mind is the factory where ideas are manufactured, decisions are shaped, visions are born, and strategies are developed. Every great invention, every movement, every shift in history started first as a thought. Likewise, everything significant in your life, your relationships, your finances, your health, your leadership, your influence, will reflect what your mind is producing. The danger is not in having a limited life, it's in having a limited mind. Because the quality of your thinking determines the quality of what your future will become. Factories do not just produce randomly. They produce according to the instructions, the raw materials, and the systems they're built on. The same is true of your mind. What you feed it consistently will shape what it produces. If your mind is constantly processing fear, self-doubt, anxiety, and insecurity, don't be surprised when your future begins to reflect those internal realities. But if your thoughts are aligned with truth, vision, discipline, and purpose, then what your mind creates will push your life in the direction of growth, fulfillment, and impact. Your mind is not passive, it is active. It is always building something. The only question is, what is it building for you? Many people fail to realize that their mind is not just a place of storage. It is a production center. Every day, you're either producing excuses or perpetuating progress. You're manufacturing peace or perpetuating stress. You are either constructing dreams or reinforcing limitation. You don't wake up into the life you want, you think your way into it. The difference between stagnation and elevation is often not opportunity, but mentality. The most successful people didn't always have the most resources, but they had the right mindset. They saw possibilities where others saw problems. They used their thoughts to create momentum, while others used theirs to justify staying stuck. And like any factory, your mind needs maintenance. You must inspect what's being produced regularly. Are your dominant thoughts aligned with the future you're praying for? Or are you recycling the pain of your past? Are you building according to the blueprint of vision, or are you just surviving another day? No architect begins construction without first drafting a clear plan, and neither should you. If you do not design your mental environment intentionally, your future will be built by default instead of by design. You have the power to shift the direction of your life by upgrading the patterns of your mind, because what your mind consistently manufactures today, your life will eventually walk into tomorrow. Your past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Yet too many people live mentally anchored to where they've been, rather than where they're called to go. History has a voice, but it should never have the final say. Your thoughts were never meant to orbit your past mistakes, old wounds, former seasons, or outdated versions of yourself. If you're always thinking according to where you've been, you will never access the boldness required to enter where you're going. Destiny is not activated by backward thinking. It is activated by forward vision. And until you align your thoughts with your divine assignment instead of your human experience, you will live beneath your calling, even with all the potential inside you. History tends to repeat itself not because people want to repeat it, but because they never renew the way they think about it. If you constantly process life through the lens of your pain, betrayal, loss, or rejection, then even new opportunities will look like old threats. You'll misinterpret open doors as potential traps. You'll shrink in moments that require expansion. You'll hesitate when it's time to lead. Why? Because your mind is still loyal to the version of you that was broken, unhealed, or uncertain. But you were never meant to think from your scars. You were called to think from your purpose. And your purpose is not behind you, it's ahead of you. That means your mindset must catch up with your calling. Destiny thinking requires vision, courage, and maturity. It means you deliberately refuse to let your past dictate your expectations. It means speaking to yourself according to your potential, not your previous patterns. It means confronting internal narratives that say, I've never done that before, or that's not who I am, with bold declarations like, I am becoming who I was created to be. History wants to keep you safe, but destiny demands that you grow. History says, remember what happened last time. Destiny says, trust the process this time. When you choose to think according to your destiny, you start showing up with authority, clarity, and confidence, even when your circumstances haven't changed yet. What most people don't realize is that the future requires a different mindset than the one they used to survive the past. You can't walk into something new with old assumptions, old limitations, or the same old internal vocabulary. Thinking according to your destiny means you train your mind to expect progress, to prepare for favor, and to plan for impact. You rehearse possibility instead of pain. You build mental habits that align with the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. Because your destiny is too big, too important, and too sacred to be filtered through the lens of what went wrong. And every day you continue thinking like your history, you delay the future you were born to create. So now I leave you with this truth. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are not a victim of your thoughts, your past, or your patterns. You have been given authority to govern your mind. And with that authority comes responsibility. This is the season to rise. This is the moment to renew. This is the hour to kill every thought that tries to cancel your calling. You were never meant to live beneath the weight of fear, shame, or doubt. You were created to think with clarity, to walk with boldness, and to move with vision. But none of that can happen if you continue to entertain the lies that tell you otherwise. You don't need another breakthrough. You need a mental shift because the greatest victory you will ever win is not over an enemy around you, but over the negative patterns within you. So kill the fear, kill the insecurity, kill the comparison, kill the voice that says you can't, replace it with truth, replace it with purpose, replace it with what aligns with your destiny. And when you do, watch your life transform from the inside out. Because when you kill negative thinking, you release the future that was always waiting for you to believe it was possible.